All right, folks, we're live on the Where to Hunt podcast. This is Eric and the co-host.
Greg there, hey.
There we go. Greg there, hey, guys. Hey, before we get started on the show and bring our guest on, we have our sponsors, shout-outs, call-outs, whatever you want to call them. Backwoods Grind Coffee. This show wouldn't be possible without those guys, mainly because they give us the energy to do it. I don't know about you, but they give me the energy.
Well, I'm glad you got energy tonight.
I made the mistake of drinking some Backwoods Grind last week at 6 p.m. to get through this. Ooh. I didn't go to bed till 1:30 in the morning.
Don't you do that normally anyway?
Yeah, no, 12.
12, yeah.
It's got to be careful. I'm just saying. Yeah. It's powerful stuff. Head on over to backwoodsgrind.com. You can enter in code W2H podcast for 10% off. And which blends have you tried?
I've tried High Noon. Camp House is definitely my favorite. I actually did the sampler pack, and the only thing I can't stand to drink, I'm sorry, is decaf coffee. That's the only one I could not try.
Did you get the decaf?
Well, it comes in the sampler pack if you buy the
just
6-pack.
did it that way. Got it.
Yeah, so
right.
I'm just not a decaf guy. To me, it's an oxymoron.
Pointless, yeah.
Coffee and decaf. No,
I'm with you there.
Sorry.
That is a good point, though. The sampler pack's a good way to go. You can try all the various blends for a small amount of money, and then you can from there pick which bag you're going to dive into. Yeah. It's good stuff. And then they have like a subscription model too, so it just shows up at your doorstep or in your mailbox, every month or however
prepay
often. It's nice.
Done.
It's real nice. So again, 10% off to enter in code W2H podcast. And then switching boots, Gumleaf USA, gumleafusa.com. These are, I always say it backwards, these are handmade boots from scratch.
Handmade boots from little women's hands.
Well, maybe.
That was kind of a nasty thing to say.
Wow, you went to some weird dark place there.
Well, hey, you're the one that was
ogling hand
to make the boot. The video with the women's hands.
Oh, was I?
I
was. Yeah, I've done that. Uh-huh. So anyway, look, these boots are made with 85% natural rubber. I always say, wouldn't it be great if you go to a big box store and try them on, but then you would be buying all the same garbage you get from the big box stores, which are mixed with PVC and synthetic crap.
Yeah, they're not as realistic as these. You just
got to take our word that they're comfortable, they're durable, they're high quality. These are good boots. And if you want free shipping, you can enter in code W2H 2019 till the end of the year.
Do it.
Yeah, do it now. And then, lastly, I got to look up this code so I don't forget it here. We got to call out, for those that are watching and not listening, for those that are watching, I'm wearing this really nice fleece flannel. It's super soft. It's super warm. My kid has puked on this 100 times.
Yeah.
And you would never know it. It just kind of, I don't know. It's super durable. It's just a great
fleece flannel.
I love it. And so it is important to call
it
that.
Heavy duty fleece.
It is a heavy duty fleece, and it's got this, plaid pattern on here. But, so head on over to, is it Shop Venato, right?
Yep. Shop Venato.
So it's venatoinc.com, VENADO, is important, INC.com. And then if you do /discount/wear the number 2, the word hunt 20, or just code wear the number 2 hunt 20, you're going to get 20% off.
20% off is better than no percent off.
Between now and the end of the year. So Merry Christmas, folks. Head on over to Venato. Check those guys out. 2% back to conservation, right?
That's right.
Good organization. We love those guys.
Yes.
So without further BSing, we'll bring on our guest. Jason Campbell with Bed to Dead is on the line with us. What's up, buddy?
Not a whole lot. Just actually thinking about my Ohio trip coming up this weekend.
Awesome.
This weekend, Ohio. And you're in Michigan, right?
Yep, I will be. Yes, I will be in Ohio the 21st and 22nd. They have a second gun season that opens up, and there's an area that I hunted earlier in the season that closed down for waterfowl hunting, and it just opened back up, and no one's been in there yet. So I have a pretty good idea that there's going to have a pretty good chance of killing one of the 4 shooters I've seen in there. So
very cool. Now,
I'm hoping.
This is public land, or is this like a wildlife management area that you got to draw like a permit for, or how's that work?
Nope, it's public land.
Okay.
Public land. You can just go. Anybody can go there if they want to, and traipse around, find out where you can hunt, where you can't hunt, and put some effort in. And there's a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot of big deer on there, but they do have some very quality deer if you put some time in.
Sure. And that's the important thing, is putting the time in order to be successful.
Well, before we get too far into that, let's just take a second. For those that don't know you, Jason, and From Bed to Dead, maybe just take a couple minutes to tell us who you are and what you're all about, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, who are you?
Who the hell are you?
And what
Why are you
doing?
here?
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, I'm a Michigan native. I was raised relatively poor, so hunting private or any sort of managed land was non-existent for me. So I grew up on public land, and we hunted mainly for food, but also for sport. Like, it was something that we also enjoyed doing as well. And over the years of killing lots of 4 points and 6 points and does, and shooting pretty much every legal deer that walked in, I think I was 24 and just decided that it was time to start pursuing something different, and wanted to go after a better quality animal. And then I started, scouting more everything, and then kind of went into finding websites and people, and getting into the social networking aspect of it. And during this time, I started knocking some pretty good bucks down pretty consistently. And then that kind of progressed after I had kind of, I don't want to say figured it out, but had started feeling pretty confident that every year I was going to knock at least one or two good bucks down, into starting to video my hunts. And
what year was this that you started doing the video stuff?
I would say 2011 or 12 is when I first started dabbling into it.
Okay. So
And
almost,
that was
almost
just
10 years ago.
literally like, it was like cheap stuff. Like, I'm talking like, use your phone, or or old handy cam. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think I had a camera arm the very first time I ever tried filming something. I think I tied it to a stick or something. I can't remember what we did, honestly.
Sure.
And it just was like a steady screenshot, looking over where you were hunting. And I remember doing some research, and then finally getting a camera arm and upgrading the camera slightly, and then GoPros weren't out back then or anything like that I remember of anyways. And that kind of all started evolving, and it just kind of took off went from there, because I originally started doing it just for fun, just because it was something that I wanted to do growing up as a kid. I think most of us always looked at or idolized the TV entertainment, video hunting. Yep. And I don't know, I guess you just always wanted to wish that was you, I wish that was me doing that. And so, it's just kind of a long shot of a dream, I guess. And then I went on the Hunting Beast, and made some good friends on there, and that just kind of took off. And I watched a couple of people that had been doing their own videoing, and I just was like, I want to help people. I want to post like real tactics and tips, not the junk that a lot of people try to convince you of is how it really is. And Michigan is not Iowa. It's not, Kansas. It's not, most other states. And when I say that
it's basically like Wisconsin, maybe a little harder.
It's a bit harder than Wisconsin.
And I say this. This is what I would say, okay? Every state that you hunt you got to find the good areas. There are good areas here in Michigan. You just got to work for them, just like it would be in any other state.
Right.
But the numbers of the quality deer just aren't here compared to other states, which you know what I mean? That's just that's what draws a lot of people, I think, from Michigan to go out of state and hunt. But I decided to start from bed to dead, and it was mainly about wanting to share knowledge and teach people. It's all out of my own pocket. Like I didn't have any sponsors that paid for it or anything. It was just me. I went out and bought, a good Canon camera so I could video my stuff. I got a Tacticam, a GoPro, no video experience except for my own teachings. Like I never had editing, software class or anything like that and went through, and I just started kind of doing it on my own. And I guess I took this approach that, someone can learn how to do videography, to me, easier than someone can learn how to consistently kill big bucks and be able to share the knowledge and tactics with the people. And it just kind of expanded from there. And wasn't long that I got in touch with Byron Horton from the Whitetail Experience, and he sort of arranged a meeting with Cody DeQuisto, and that turned into me being on the Lone Wolf Custom Gear sponsor, the pro staff, and then getting asked to film for Whitetail Addiction. So it seemed like it was like an overnight thing, to be honest with you, and not in my wildest dreams did I expect to hit the ground running this fast this soon. So
That's pretty cool.
And what is Whitetail Addictions for those that don't know?
It's a video company that goes after the biggest, most mature animals they can get on every year. We video all of our hunts, and right now we have a YouTube channel, and I think it's Whitetail Addictions. And then we're on Instagram and social media, Facebook, and our big sponsor is Lone Wolf Custom Gear, or what we represent. So it's tactics, knowledge, along with, not just somebody shooting a big buck that walks in. There's actually some explanation and some detail work that goes with it, and a lot of really good guys that have a lot of hunting experience that put some giants down. I think this year, I'm just throwing this out because I'm not exact numbers, but I think we put 3 or 4 200 class deer down.
Wow.
This year on video. So
Say 200?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 with 2
Yeah,
zeros.
200 inch. Yeah. Yeah, 200. I know, it's like
Can we
world
just
class.
be best friends?
I
Can
do
we
the
hang
same
out all season?
Well, first
Seriously,
and foremost,
come on.
I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, I was not one of the ones that put a 200-inch deer down
No,
this year.
and
So
there's a lot that goes into that, like the
but
right property, the
I tell
right
you what,
management.
oh, there
You
is.
get eyes on a deer like
Exactly.
that, though. I need
Like,
some sort of a semblance of validation that they actually exist, like that damn M&M commercial with Santa. They do exist. Because I ain't seen them.
Yeah, they do, but
I've-
yeah, it's. I mean, well, first of all, they're not just running around anywhere.
That's
I
just
mean,
No.
it.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's why we're talking
it's
to you.
tough.
I mean, I think the biggest,
That's world class, though.
I can
Yeah.
say wholeheartedly, the biggest deer I've seen on the hoof running away at 200 yards was 170 inches. And the only reason I know it was 170 was 176.
Someone else killed it?
Yeah, 3/8. A young kid killed it a week later. So that's how
Oh,
I
wow.
know. Yeah. It was on a piece of property that I had
That's a
permission to hunt.
giant, though.
Did it
I
shake the
that's-
ground when it was
People don't
running away?
understand that,
Yeah, it did shake the ground, or it might have been my heart pounding in my head. I don't know. When I saw it, it was pretty impressive to
I'd
see.
nickname him frickin' Tremor, the earthquake buck.
Yeah, well, I watched
Jeez.
3 other guys miss the deer. They ran right between all 3 of them, and they all 3 missed.
Or maybe we call him Neo, the Matrix buck.
Yeah, he was Neo.
Dodging bullets,
Dodging
man.
bullets.
Right
That's
through
a
the
good
horns.
name for a buck, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not into naming deer, but
I'm not either, but it's fun right now. I don't see enough to name
Well,
them.
for the purposes of what we're talking about, I guess it works, right?
yeah, Neo.
Absolutely. Well, that's cool, man.
But
So
yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
to even lay eyes on bucks like that. And so how you're still out getting at it, and you do, obviously we're talking about out-of-state hunting and stuff too. You're going to Ohio. Ohio's pretty close to Michigan, right? So, but still that whole mindset, I did an episode a while back about out-of-state hunting a little bit. I think it was a Josh Prophet, if I'm not mistaken, or someone else
Could have been.
around those episodes where I was doing a few. I've had quite a few guests now, but in any event, that mentality of crossing a state border, there's a lot of logistics, even for us, for our deer camp in Grant County for gun deer. I've considered renting a cabin in Iowa because there's more availability for renting cabins, but then transferring a deer carcass across state borders gets really complicated.
It's not happening.
So,
bueno.
How have you started to like get your mind around initially early on for yourself? Like, how did you start to deal with that?
Well, I think the first thing that I did was, I relied on some of the people that I'd met online to ask questions, and I'm sure I probably annoyed several of them, often always asking, what about this, what about that? And I also referred to, the rules of each state, and the crazy thing is a lot of times they change from year to year, so you really have to be up to date on them.
Yeah, and
then you also have to refer back to the Michigan rules, like if I'm coming home with the deer, how what do I have to do? How do I
quarter it up,
and it's all subject to your interpretation and their interpretation.
How do you keep it good getting across state lines? Once you've done everything else, like what if you're going to dry ice it, if you're going to bring a freezer, and keep it plugged in when you're there. We've done that too, and then have it frozen, and then duct tape the top so it doesn't come off, and it keeps it froze the whole way. There's numerous things. How do you get the hide across? How does the taxidermist want it? Don't roll the hide. They want you to fold it in fours. There's a lot of things you got to take into account. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to go buy this Ohio tag, and I'm going down, and then all of a sudden after I shoot one, okay, what the hell do I do now? Right. You need to be more prepared than that, or you're going to find yourself in a quick jam. So
sure,
yeah, it was pretty overwhelming. I'm not going to lie, at first, because you don't know where to start and where to go. But then once you get your feet wet and you make that initial plunge, every time after that it's just, I don't know, it's more enjoyable. It's less wear and tear on you as far as stress-wise goes, and you start to get more comfortable with, what needs to be done. And, I would urge anybody, write notes down on each state, because you can forget, if you do like I do sometimes, you can forget sometimes what state you're in. You have to remind yourself even what day it is. So,
where the hell was I again? It all starts to blend together, right? So,
what day was it again?
The advice I got from the episode I was talking about was, start to just hunt maybe a bordering state, so it's not so much of a mind shift, right? If I'm in Wisconsin, maybe I hunt Illinois, or maybe I hunt Minnesota.
Yeah.
And, that's a little bit easier to overcome kind of maybe your perception of out of state if it's a neighboring state. But trying to think about going to South Dakota or North Dakota or something like that, it starts to become, that's a lot of travel. Which states have you hunted, and which ones have you really liked the best, and how come?
I've hunted Kansas, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, and Michigan.
Quite a few. Which ones? I had 2 questions initially. I'll let you answer it. Sorry.
Yeah,
slow your roll.
The one that I like the most, and it's not really because of the deer hunting, it's more because of the scenery, was Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
When I went there, it was, I guess where I was, it was just gorgeous. It was hard. The air was different. I was more northern. It was different from that, from that standpoint. But if we were going to talk about as far as quality deer, honest to God, they're all about the same, to be honest with you, on public land. I know that's going to sound crazy, and people are going to be like, well, what do you mean? Well, I just went to Kansas and spent 6 days or 7 days in Kansas, and I saw 2 bucks. One was a broken fork horn, and the other one was a spike horn. That was Kansas. And I went to Missouri and spent 5 days there and was passing 135-inch deer at 10 yards.
Sure. It all depends on the property.
It's all on the property. It's all on the location. Also, it's how often can you get there to scout it? What has the weather changed? Did it flood out? Did it, how's the food sources? I mean, there's a million factors really that play into it. And if you don't live in those states or can't travel to them or have someone in the area that can keep you kind of up to speed, I mean, you're going to get lost along the way, and you're going to have to go there with a baseline starting point, like pretty much the basics. So, and to me, that's scouting a ton, putting boots on the ground.
Sure. And so say you're going to hunt Ohio. How many times do you think you're going there to scout before you actually hunt?
I went there 3 weekends before the season opened up, and I spent pretty much the whole entire weekend glassing, scouting, walking. So, I mean, quite a few hours. I mean, obviously you're not out there 24/7. I mean, you eat and, the hot of the day, but I put some time in, I would say, in Ohio. I went there, I probably put, I don't know, a good 24 hours of scouting in, actual 24 hours, like, a full day's worth.
Sure.
Of scouting, and then I hunted it early season, the 26th and 27th when it opened this year, and I haven't been back since, and I'm getting ready to go back down. So, I guess I'm even though I'm going to be going, and there's going to be a lot that's changed, because now the deer are on a different pattern. The rut's over. Deer are trying to transition back to food.
Sure.
And I'm really, to be honest with you, kind of hoping that the deer were doing the same thing they were doing when I was there the 26th and 27th, and with them being back on food to bed pattern, I think that's a really good possibility. So I'm going to be hunting at a food source that, in Ohio, the DNR actually plant quite a bit of food sources for the deer. It's not
that's kind of cool.
Like here in Michigan, we don't get that. Yeah, sure. We don't get that here.
So 2 questions real quick, and then we can dive into some of the tactics.
You're kind of greedy.
I know, but I usually ask like 10.
It's okay. It's okay. He's the host. They normally are.
And a host and a co-host. You've got 2 different responsibilities, don't you know?
Yeah, I just sit here and look pretty. Stroke my beard a little bit.
That's right. This means you're pondering. Your next question.
I'm thinking about drinking a beer.
The 2 questions are.
Book open, it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one's on the beginning side, one's on the back side. So, what is the licensing purchase process like in the various states? Has that been easy, difficult, or any better than others, more expensive? And then on the flip of that, if you've tagged out on deer in other states, how is the harvesting, the tagging process been? Has that been easy? Because like here in Wisconsin, I've only hunted Wisconsin, so I know what it's like to buy a tag, and I know what it's like to tag a deer, right? But if I were to go somewhere else, I'd be like a little lost in the sauce.
You're always lost in the sauce.
I will say like this. Most states that you go hunt, you go right to Walmart, purchase your hunting license. It'd be like the same thing. You just say non-resident.
Okay.
And you're going to pay more. You're going to pay for draw states. And if, you know what I mean? So there's a different order of how you do things. Like you got to put in during a certain time frame of the year, and then you got to pick an area, and then maybe a secondary area, and if you get drawn, there's always a non-refundable, and I think Kansas was $97.50 plus $27.50 that was non-refundable, and then once you get your tag, it's $412, I want to say, for non-resident.
Wow.
And then, in Iowa, you put on for the preference points, which I think they're up to like $57 or $62 a year now. And then when you draw, again, for the area that you put in for, you have to pay like $700, I want to say it is, or $550 for the actual tag and habitat stamp, or, all the different things that you do. Whereas, you go to Ohio and you don't have to have that. You just go in there and pay your non-resident fee and your license fee.
Yeah,
it sounds like
you can hunt the whole state.
My God.
it sounds like
You know what I
Iowa's
mean?
it's really come up in price. I mean, I don't know much about Iowa other than it's the premier state.
It has.
Between
It's been
that,
rising every year,
yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, you're going to see a higher quality animal most of the time, from what I understand. And the higher cost of the tag and the drawing, the whole drawing process is keeping a large majority of, the Dickie Moe hunters out of there.
You point at me, you son
Yeah,
of a bitch.
and you know what? I think you're right on that, Greg. Because I mean, I do understand. As hard as it is for someone who wants to hunt that state, is every year if I could. I do understand that it keeps it replenished and well, and I personally like how they do it. I wish they did it in more states like that, but
Sure.
I do appreciate the states that don't, and they're over the counter too, because it gives me extra chances to go pursue more deer. Not that I probably need to, but it's something I love doing. I'm addicted to hunting and going out of state and the experience of it all and tackling new land and trying to piece the puzzle together. I've said this numerous times, the chess match absolutely just drives me wild, chasing a mature buck, and especially new ground. There's something about it that, you're stepping foot somewhere you've never set before, and it's kind of like you're challenging yourself.
Well, yeah, it's a challenge to, one, learn the new piece of ground, because not every piece of ground is the same. And two, getting on.
No, it's not.
No, and then getting on a mature animal, or any animal for some people. Everybody's success looks different, right? I mean, some of us are real happy to see a doe or a buck of any kind, and you got plenty of guys out there that are on a totally different level, including yourself, and that you see a spike and go, well, this probably isn't the spot, and doesn't totally disappoint you. Yeah,
you're not even going to set up in an area if
No.
you're not finding the kind of sign, for some guys. So I mean that kind of is really what happens a lot of time is when I go to these states, like I'm trying different areas of public out, and I'm pounding miles of land trying to find track size, trying to find rub size, looking at the pressure.
If you're Connor, you're looking for big
bedding.
buck turds, right? Those brownies.
Yeah, large buck brownies.
I mean, I'm looking for, and it's just been my goal is I want to shoot a P&Y off public land in every state I hunt. That's just one of the goals I set forth, and it's I know it's going to take a long time to do, but like I love it though. Like I do it. It sucks taking time away from my family and being gone, but at the same time, there's just something that's just energizing about it. Like, I don't know. It's not for everybody, I can tell you that, but I can tell you for those who have been wondering about wanting to go out of state, do it. Trust me, you're not going to look back.
You said something interesting about
Well, you
it's not for everybody, right? And it's hard to do. There's a statistic I had seen recently that I'm trying to look up real quick here, that a friend of mine had posted out of his business that he runs, and it was about some of the stats around hunting. He actually works in like a really data-rich field of the outdoor industry. And it was, everyone seems to think it's land access is one of the biggest deterrents of hunting. But he said, in fact, it's not true. It actually ends up being the fact that a lot of people don't want to take time away from their families. And if they're married, they got a wife and kids and that kind of stuff. That's actually one of the bigger reasons people aren't hunting.
Right.
I think land access was number 4 on the list when you look at the data.
Yeah, if you can't put the time.
Yeah,
in.
I mean, I would agree with that too, and just because there's a lot of lands that are open for people, I don't think it's really the issue with the land. People get homesick. People have a hard time with being unfamiliar territory. Living in a hotel or a campsite or a campground, or your travel trailer or your truck, car, whatever it is that you're using. I mean, you're really taking yourself out of your element and putting yourself in a completely different element that you've never been to. You don't even know where the doctor is, unless you do your research.
That's a good point.
You don't know where the grocery store is. You don't
That's
know
all
anything.
stuff. Yeah, that's all stuff that you gotta.
You should be doing that.
Yep, research it. It takes time, and I mean,
that's why I say it takes a lot of preparation. When I go to a city or a new place to hunt, like, I want to know where the grocery store is in relation to where I'm going to be at. I want to know where the gas stations are. I mean, it's down to the point that if you have a favorite drink or a Monster or something you want to drink, you want to know where the gas station is that sells it. Like, you don't want to go to a gas station in the morning thinking they're going to carry your favorite drink, and then you walk in there and they don't have it, because, I mean, instantly you're deflated, like, oh. Like, I mean, and you want to make it as familiar as possible. Know where the laundromat is, so if you got to dry your clothes.
Right, if you're in a state where there's no Quick Trips, we got problems.
Or Casey's.
Yeah, I'm just saying but I'm just saying you need to know all of these things.
These are really good points.
And I feel like it adds to making it easier for the person, and because then they feel more confident and comfortable, like they're back in their, they can get to their mode quicker that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so once you're actually there, how are you dissecting a property? Because we talked about a little bit offline about you can digitally scout or e-scout all day long, and you got to do that homework. That's fine. It's a pretty big piece of it, but you might get to a place and realize that map has changed. Maybe there isn't a bridge there, or maybe that access point is different, or it's super crowded, or there's, bird hunting is happening right then, and so you didn't consider that. Like, what happens when you bridge the gap between e-scouting and boots on the ground? How are you approaching that?
I would say e-scouting is just it's something that I use just to look at an overall area and kind of diagnose food sources, pinch points, that kind of thing. Like, does it have a river source? I'm looking for kind of big things on them. I'm not really looking for bedding points like a lot of guys will do. And, they'll circle all these bedding points on them. Once I see that there's river bottom, once I see that there's not a lot of public parking, once I see that there's crops on the nearby properties, or there's pieces that butt up against it that don't have a lot of public access, once I see those kind of things and I see a lot of it, or it's marshland or high elevation, whatever it is I'm looking for, once an area has that, I really don't even pay attention to the aerial maps anymore, to be honest with you, except for when I'm on Onyx and I find good sign and I mark a pin drop on it. Otherwise, I'm just pounding it out with boots on the ground.
Yeah,
I'm driving all the perimeter. Yep, I'm driving all the perimeter roads, and I want to see what's on that section of woods. I want to see all the access points. I want to see how many public, 2 tracks are walking back to it. I mean, I'm pretty much looking for everything. I'm not just scouting deer. I'm scouting human pressure. I'm scouting, anything that I feel like would either help or hinder me in that, the pursuit, if the deer would be back there. And then I'm going back there and pretty much trying to pound as much boots to ground as I can. And sometimes it's stand on back, and sometimes it's middle of the day, after I've hunted a spot and maybe it didn't see what I wanted to see, or maybe it wasn't as good as what I thought it was. And then I head to another section and just keep breaking down, those transition lines until I either find what I'm looking for, or I'll move completely to another hunting area if I can't find it. If I pretty much ate up all of the acreage and I'm like, you know what, I just don't feel confident that there's, I guess, how do I say this? I don't want to hunt an area that's holding 1 big buck. I want to hunt an area that might have 5 big bucks in it, because my percentage of being able to see one goes up. So, yeah, there might be 1 big buck there, but I want to hunt an area that might hold a couple big bucks, because my odds are going to be higher every time I sit, instead of just holding out for 1 deer. Now, if it's a huge deer, different story, that gets us all, but you're looking for numerous big buck tracks, fresh sign, something that tells you the deer live there right now. They weren't there a week ago, or it's last year's sign. So
Are you doing any
boots
trail
on the
cam
ground.
strategy in combination with the out-of-state hunts too, or you're just going into a property, looking for sign and seeing if it's
Not
hot
really,
enough?
to be honest with you. Yeah, not really.
just
I don't
curious.
do a lot of trail cam from out-of-state hunts just because they get stole quite frequently, no matter what you do. And to be honest with you, if you're hunting 4 or 5 states like I do, I forget where they're at and how many of them are out there. And it's different because like early season, I'm going to put them on a food source because that's where the deer are going to be, and I'm inventorying them. If I'm coming back and hunting it, and a lot of times I don't know exactly what time frame. I can plan and say, I think I want to be, say end of October, I want to come. Well, what happens if I get on a giant here and I feel like I'm knocking on the door of killing them? I'm not going to leave him. The one golden rule I guess I've always lived by is you don't leave a big buck to find another one. So I don't know.
I had a question lined up in my head, but I forgot it.
Does that make sense what I was trying to say, though? Did you understand what I meant if you're chasing a big buck, why would you leave and go somewhere else to try to find one?
There's no reason to, especially if you got good intel on it.
That's what I mean. If you got good intel, now if one disappeared on you, it's a different story. You might need a break, whatever else, or maybe you think he got killed. I get it, but if you're seeing one and you're closing the gap on one, and I think, Greg, you follow us, don't you? So
yeah, I do.
You knew that I had posted that I was on the heels of the buck I shot this year, and I said it's going to be any day now.
Right.
And I wasn't leaving. I was not leaving. I knew.
Well, there's no point.
I had him.
I guess I can say I'm a better fisherman than a hunter. I've done pretty good out on Lake Michigan salmon fishing, and inland lakes. I do my share of fishing there too, but I don't leave fish to go find other fish. If I'm on what I'm happy with, I'm not moving.
It's a good point.
It's kind of silly.
Well, I was in the case in point. Why I'm saying this is I was supposed to meet up with Connor and hunt with Connor in Wisconsin, and we had planned on like the October 26th, and I shot my buck the 27th. So
you were
already what I mean, and then he ended up and by the time I was to get there, he already tagged out in his buck and was headed back home.
Right.
So like. Sometimes it just works out where, you might have all the plans in the world to go do it from a time frame, but sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And I'm not one of those people who's like, I took vacation from the 1st to the 7th, so I'm going to Ohio no matter what the 1st to the 7th to cut my own throat. I just won't do it. Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather go after the deer. I know for sure I have the best chance of killing, which is usually close to home first. And then once I've done that, then it's fine to go other places and give it a shot.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, you follow the sign, you work with what you've got, and if your intel is telling you, you should be here, and you got to throw a few sits at it to get right on the money spot, that's what you do.
I was going to say, I think I remember my question. I'm going to try to put it together here, and I'll trip over my words as I go, but good friend of mine. Yeah, I just I think
tripping.
I think with my mouth, it comes out as I don't know what I'm going to say until it comes out.
Better with the mouth than the other end.
Well, there we go. I think with my ass, I don't know how that would go. No, so a buddy of mine, and I know a couple people that do it this way. They will not hunt an area twice, or they'll go into a spot, and at that point, if it's good, it's good. They're not going to go back into it. So when you're talking about scouting and identifying if there's multiple bucks on a property, I don't know. People have different beliefs, and it's all subjective based on individual success and what they define as success and everything like that. So I'm not trying to challenge anybody here. But for you've had success, and so I'm curious, if you go into an area, are you hunting it on that first sit, or are you coming back to it after you've put your sign in there? Does that make sense what I'm asking, hopefully?
Yep, and I would say both. It really depends on the situation. Like, there's times that your first sit is always, and everybody will tell you this, your first sit it's the first time you ever intruded into an area. It's your best chances of catching the deer off guard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because once you start to put your scent down in the area, it doesn't take long. One deer come across it that they start to shift or move, or maybe they don't get up as early as they once did, you know, whatever it might be. But that's why it's so important to have good entrance strategies. It's, you know, playing the wind, making sure that you're not busting through bedding. But that's where also it's important to really visually sit back sometimes and get the pieces together before you just go hauling ass into a location and basically burn it all to hell before you even really were in the game. You
Right.
think you're in the game, but then you go in there on your first sit and charge in, and let's say you do see the buck, but he don't give you a shot, and then all of a sudden he's not there anymore because you really didn't pay attention to all the factors. And, you know, you knew the sign showed you a big buck was there, but you didn't, you know, there's 4 runs there within 100 yards. You didn't know where he was. You didn't know where exactly he was bedding at. You just know he was in this section. And I think that's where sometimes a lot of guys go wrong is they get impatient. They go in and find the sign, and let's say they read the sign correctly to an extent, and then they get super excited and they just rush in there because it's like, okay, I got to kill him. And sometimes you know, you got to hunt an area and learn the area. So, yes, the first sit is a great chance when you decide to finally move in an area. But, I mean, I'm just telling you, this is just the way I guess I look at it, and I think a lot of guys that I've talked to feel the same way. You're never going to kill a deer if you only go in time and decide you're going to sit at one stinking time. How you ever going to learn that area? How you ever going to learn? The deer's not just going to leave and totally go void. Like, I mean, you have to hunt the area. You're going to have to throw sits at it. You got to tell how do you pattern them. I mean, if you're not sitting in that area, how are you going to know what run he comes down? How do you know what bedding area he likes to use? You know what I mean? You can't just rely off trail cameras because you can't go in and check them every day.
No.
You know, you got to be out there in the woods. You've got to put your time in. You have to know what you're looking for. Watching the deer from a distance, you know, from safe, you know, sometimes it's a safe distance. Sometimes it's a matter of a chess match where, you know, hey, I think I have a pretty good chance, so I'll sit on the outside transition this time, and I watch him get up, and I see where he goes. Okay, cool. And the next night, I might move over to where I thought he went. And you know what I mean? But I'm not just going to stop hunting just because I don't see him, because I know, and I guess this is where reading tracks is huge. Those tracks don't lie. So if there's fresh tracks going in those bedding areas and using those places, he's there. You just got to find him again. Or maybe he's not moving as often in daylight, and it's a timing issue where, you know, certain times of the year, they get good. Mature bucks are weird like that. They have different characteristics. They don't always, you know, some of them get to 4.5 years old or 5.5 years old, and they're the king of the woods. And then sometimes they get seclusive, and they weren't, you know, last year maybe they showed themselves a ton, but this year they don't. I mean, it's really each deer you have to play off their characteristic or personality, I guess.
I've heard that kind of stuff before, that the different deer have different characteristics, just like humans. One might be a more aggressive, one might be a good-hearted, nice buck. He might just be like, you know what, I'm in trouble, guys. You know, or some are lazy.
I always like to look at it like this, like deer are like dogs, okay? Some dogs, they'll rush right out down the driveway and they want to jump on you and lick all over you, and they're just curious naturally, and they're friendly dogs. Then you got some dogs, when you come down the driveway, they kind of hide behind the master, and when the master kind of gives them the okay, then they come out and kind of socialize. And then you got the dogs that when they hear a car coming down the road, they run to the back room and don't come out until it's safe. And that's just how deer are.
No, that's cool. That's the first time.
It is make it, you know.
Right.
It's the first time I heard that. And in fact, you ended up describing both of our dogs out of 2 of those 3. Mine's the one that's going to run up and lick your hand, and his is the one that's going to hide behind him and say, well, can I trust this joker or not?
Yep.
Yeah. His dog's smarter than mine.
Experience teaches them, you know what I mean? Just like anything would, just like, you know,
sure.
You know, they get smarter, you know, but I mean, I think it's important to, like, if the deer sign is telling you that a deer is there, why would you give up on it? You know what I mean? Like, just because what you feel like if I said it twice, I'm gonna I'm going to have a bad experience. Like, no, like keep hunting it, keep learning it. Like, I mean, that's really what you do. You learn it. And if you ever listen to Andre will go right into those bedding areas and kick the deer right out of them.
Well, then
he'll go right in there and bust the deer completely out. He wants to see if they're there. What caliber deer is occupying that bedding area? Is it a 150 or is it a 180? Is it a 130 or is it a 100-incher? He wants to know. And a lot of times he'll set right up on that deer right away, and he calls it like bump and dumping, and he'll set right up on that deer right away and kill him. I mean, most of the time, and this is just from my experience and what I've seen, I'm not saying this is the golden rule. You're going to have to bump a buck more than once in order for him to just vanish out of a bedding area. And it depends. Did you bump him because he winded you or he saw and heard you? Because those are two different things right there. If he winds you, it's a much different aspect than if he sees you or hears you and he busts out of there.
Yeah.
If he winds you, he knows that you're danger.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, you've made him aware of your presence. He knows that bed works for a situation.
That's what I was going to say.
He's coming
validated
back.
that. He's validated the success of that setup for that bed. He knows it's a safe place because it did
right,
its job.
exactly.
I've bumped bucks out of beds, and then I'm like, shit, well, now I know where they're bedding, right? But, yeah, I've not had the success Andre has.
Right.
Well, I mean,
but I'm learning, that's data.
There's a lot of guys that's done both. I got a lot of guys that hunt it, and they're telling themselves, like, I bumped him out there, he's not going to be back. And then you hear I went back there a week later, kicked him out of the same bed. And they're like, I didn't think you would do that. Like, yes, they will. Like, it's going to take, like, they won't take a constant approach where you just keep assaulting the bedding area. But if you kick a buck that you're going after or a caliber deer you're going after, you should make a mental note of where that deer was bedding, what the wind direction was, what time of year it was, everything that's possible. And to me, you strike when the iron's hot.
Well, that's
if
a good
sign says
that's
he's
good.
there. If, everything's then you do until you are confident that he's not there anymore, or he's moved on, or you know what I mean.
Well, additionally too, like using that to know that is a bedding area for a big buck. Come next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, what do you think's going to happen? Another big buck's going to find that same terrain attractive for the same reasons the other big buck did.
And 90% of the time, the reason why they bed there is because the wind and the thermals are probably to their advantage, and it's overlooked or security, or they can visually see. And I honestly think that it gets passed down from generation to generation. Like they learned. Them little bucks walk around with them big bucks when they batch her up, and they learn all those bedding haunts from them big bucks do, and they know. It's just like they're teaching them, like they hand it down. So I mean, that's just my personal thought process, I guess, of what I've, thought. Like, that's why they, you shoot one big buck out of a bedding area. And a lot of times if there's another big buck there, he'll take over that bedding area, especially if it's the best bedding area or the most dominant bedding area, I guess.
Yeah, most secure and offers the most options for that deer for escape and cover and food and everything else.
Yeah, breeding, whatever it might be. I mean, there's really a million different options that you can do when it comes, when it comes to why a deer could be bedded where he's at. I mean, and that's where you just got to take the time to piece all the puzzle pieces together, and really what you're doing is you're trying to raise your odds of success by knowing as much intel as possible. You should really be acting like you're a Navy SEAL who's going in to snipe out an insurgent. A Navy SEAL wouldn't just run into the middle of the town and just start shooting doorways. He's going to figure everything out that he possibly can about his target before he goes in there to extinguish them, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're hunting. It's the same thing. I mean, if you want to see a red Corvette, you're going to go sit down the old dirty road, or you're going to go sit on I-75. You know what I mean? It's really up to you. I mean, if you want to go about the hard way, that's up to you. But if you're going to go where they need to be, you got to find that.
He's not telling you should go sit out with your 30-06 off Highway 94 here, okay? Don't be shooting red Corvettes.
No,
highway hunters, man, I tell you.
I'm not saying that at all.
Hey,
but I'm just saying, like, want to up your odds, you know.
Yep,
That's what you're
exactly. If you want to see a certain caliber deer and you find where that certain caliber deer is, you go sit it.
This is what I'd like to do, gentlemen. We got to have you back on for another podcast so we can have like some sort of mini series on this or dive deeper.
doing. Yeah, because it gets quick, don't it?
It does,
Yeah.
and I love it, man. And let's keep them. Let's tease it out a little bit and give people something to come back for. But you know, for sake of time and attention span in the modern era and car ride times and whatever people are doing when they actually listen to this stuff, share with us your most memorable hunt. I know I asked before we started recording, so I'm excited to hear what you got.
I know, and it's so difficult because this year's hunt was pretty memorable. I had my son with me, but for the sake of spoiling the video, I would have to say my pursuit of a buck I chased in 2014. First laid eyes on him. He was 100% Boone deer on Michigan public land. You don't run across those too often. And I chased him pretty much all season long, and I had 3 encounters with him. One, I passed him with a smoothbore shotgun at about 100 yards, and I just wasn't confident taking the shot because I knew the gun. I knew at 75 yards I could hit where I wanted to, but at 100 yards I just wasn't sure, and I didn't. I guess I respected the animal enough that I felt like it would make it, number one, and I wanted to chase it the next year. So I made that deer my personal. It consumed me, my dreams, everything. Like all year long, that's all I did was game plan. I didn't have another. I mean, there was, even in early season, I passed up a 140-inch deer because I didn't want to blow the bedding because I knew this deer was in there. And I sat a couple observation stands, and he showed himself opening night of Michigan archery. I sat back again. I moved in a little closer, but I still sat back because I wanted to see exactly where he's coming from, and I watched him get up from the same area again. The winds were shitty for 2 weeks, and I couldn't hunt that location. And so I went in the morning off a full moon night and sat and watched him come in at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning with 3 other bucks. And I watched him go back in that bedding area. And I went in that evening, kind of followed in to where they went in that evening, and I caught a glimpse of him again. And I made one more move, and I shot him at 5 steps the next night. And he ended up scoring 166 and 6/8 or 165 and 6/8 total. He was 23.5-inch inside spread, 16 scoreable times. The year before, because he has double main beams. The year before, they were a lot bigger, which is what a couple of his tines were bigger. We kind of had a rough winter in 2014, so food was kind of a little bit, but he was aged at 6.5 years old, dressed over 240.
Wow.
So, I mean, he was, that was, and the reason why I say he was, one of my more memorable bucks is because I like to target a specific buck and then go after that specific buck and hunt that specific buck down. And that's my, when you're out of state, it's different, but in my home state, like that's my, I love it. It's just because who can really, to be honest with you, you can't question it and say somebody that's lucky. If, because a lot of people they'll try to steal your thunder, oh, you get lucky every year. Well, how do I get lucky that I shot the buck I said I was going to shoot?
It's like Babe Ruth, man, calling his freaking shots.
Lucky, you know what I mean? Well, a lot of guys do it, though. You know what I mean? It's not just me.
It's confidence.
A lot of you are more.
It's confidence in your scouting and your spot.
Yes, and in your ability to read sign and just stick on them. I mean, I always feel like this. Like I joke around it all the time, because there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, and a lot of people want to misplace that confidence, and they think you're an arrogant person. But to me, when you chase deer like this, you have to be that confident. Like you have to believe in yourself. And for me, Like, that's that thing. I feel like, don't let me get on one because I'll kill it. Like, I get on one to find it. Like, he's dead. Like, it's just a matter of time before that deer is going to die. You know, and that's not me trying to be arrogant, like, you know, because I've struck out and missed too. But not very often.
That's got to be like the same mentality a fighter has going into the ring. Like, I'm going to knock him out.
Pretty
Right?
much.
Like, I'm going to knock him out. Like, then they talk, right? No, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. They both think they're going to win. And you got to have that internal voice giving you that, you know, confidence, that momentum, that fuel to fire that flame. And you're like, you know, I'm on him. I'm going to freaking kill him. He's mine. Like,
That's what I mean.
I can get that mentality. You're not being arrogant when I hear you say it. I know what you're talking about.
But, I mean, some people do, though. I mean, some people do. They feel that way, though, because they're just like, they see your success. I mean, and think of this. Like, if you come walk in my house and, you know, you've never been here, and you come and see there's 20 different bucks sitting on my wall, and I got a Euro tree with probably another 10.
You're going to end up on whitetail cribs.
And I'm trying to talk about it with you and tell stories, and I'm excited about it. A lot of guys take it the wrong way, and they're like, you know, well, you just think you know everything, don't you? No, I don't. I learn from guys every single day. I learn from guys like Connor, from Cody, from Andre. You know, you learned from a ton of guys along the way. I pay attention to everybody that posts something. I follow Greg on social media. I follow a lot of guys that maybe some people don't. And I like to take what I can from every person, like, you know, and because they're giving back to the hunting community as well. And I feel like you should, there's always something you can learn. I'm you know, there's no finished product. So, you know, it's what really kept me seclusive for as long as it did. And then finally, you know, like my wife was like, babe, I want you to go for it, because I think the personality you have and the ability to catch people like on the edge of their seat, like listening to what you're saying, because it's true. It's not bullshit. It's the real deal. Like, there's no hidden gimmicks. There's no, you know, I'm not going to tell you you're going to throw some shake and take out and this is what's going to kill your deer. I mean, I'm just going to be real with you and tell you, like, it takes hard work. It takes dedication. It ain't easy. It ain't for everybody. But for those that have that ability, go for it, man.
Yep,
like,
absolutely.
Give it your all. You know, and if you're going to do something, don't do it half-assed, dude. Like, give it everything you got, even if it's only limited time, but give it your all.
Sure.
Then let that be what determines your success. But if your heart's not in it and you're not going to give it your all, like, in all honesty, like, you might as well just go sit somewhere and enjoy the view. Because, you know what I mean, you're short-sighting yourself, really.
Right. Well, and I can attest to that, you know, not to make this about me at all, but last year I put in a lot more time and effort into it, and I was rewarded by shooting a nice buck. This year, other events in my life hindered my efforts. So here I am. I did not shoot a deer yet this year. So we got a little bit of time yet, and I'm going to give it a go, but, you know, right now, I don't feel all that confident in it, but I might find something out there that will make me feel confident in it.
But that's what we talked about earlier too, mm-hmm. Greg, with prioritizing. And the hardest part of what I feel like is a whitetail hunter's progression is being able to balance work, home life, hunting, and then life in general. Like
podcast.
Podcasts. People die. You know, newborn babies are born. A family member gets sick, someone loses a job. You don't know what's going to happen in your life, and you can't plan for it. And when it happens, like, sometimes, you know, things get put on the back burner because priorities are first. And you know, you have to be willing to understand that.
Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of guys struggle because, you know, and you know this, marriages end because of hunting, and jobs end because of hunting. And, you know, I can raise my hand and tell you I've quit several jobs because of hunting, you know what I mean, and my day. But as you get older, you get wiser, and you realize, like, you know, there's always another day to go hunting, but sometimes there's things that take precedence over it, and you have to be willing to suppress that fire momentarily until you can get the priority number one out of the way, and then you can get back to where you were.
Yep.
Louis Pasteur says chance favors the prepared mind, right? And I just think
Mm-hmm.
if you can compound what you learn year over year over year and deploy some patience, you know, you can get to a place where you can plan for the season, can build up that vacation time. You can, like, you know what, I'm not going to have the blue flu today and take this vacation day for the hell of it. I'm going to,
Right.
you know, buck up, go to work, and I'm going to save that day so I can have that flexibility in season. Or I'm going to take half days for the next 4 weeks so I can be out evening hunts, right? And then I can still have my weekends or whatever that looks like. Just prepping and preparing, compounding the knowledge of the different spots that you've scouted and mapped out. You can plan your day sits, your evening sits, etc. You know, I'm just feel like I'm getting so much closer to me taking out a mature animal because of everything I've been learning over the years. And every year I painfully inch slowly to making it happen. But the confidence I'm bringing with me every year is growing.
You'd be surprised about the inching thing, because once it happens, it feels like you just got there. Like, you know what I mean? Like you were, all of a sudden you're there, boom.
Yep.
You know, but in a lot of the things I get all the time from guys on this topic is, you know, they're always like, you being a public land hunter, like, how do you feel about private land, or how do you feel about, you know, because we don't have time, and, you know, I just got to run out to my stand and hunt it. Dude, honestly, some private is just as precious as public, and my goal one day is to own my own property and be able to not grind as hard as I have to kill big bucks every year. I mean, like, hunt harder, you know, hunt smarter, not harder, you know what I mean? Like,
that's part of the American dream, is to own something, right?
That's, well, I mean, that's what you're working for, and right. I'll take the criticism from people over it because, you know, I paid my dues, and, you know, I guess when my wife, she looked at me, she's like, honey, she's like, you think you're going to be able to do that? And I said, I walked her into the game room, and this is where the confidence, arrogant thing comes in, and I said, do you see that? She looked down there, and she's like, yep, and I said, I ain't got to prove shit to nobody anymore. Like, I've done what I needed to do. If I want to hunt private for the rest of my life, hunt outfits, do whatever I want to do, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I proved it to myself already. I know I can kill big deer on private or public land wherever I hunt. If, you know, I'm free to do what I want to do now.
And at the end of the day,
that means I want to hunt, and you know, wherever I want to hunt, so I can spend more time at family, then I'm gonna.
Sure, and you're your biggest credit. Right, you're your biggest critic, and when you feel you've achieved what you want to achieve, you know, nobody else can really say much. You know, they haven't done what you've done. They haven't walked a mile in your shoes.
Right, and saying that, like, I'm not ready to give up public land hunting. Like, I'm not at all. I love it. I love everything about it. It's rewarding, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes, you know, when you were talking about the whole, you know, what's important, and, you know, sometimes people are too worried about what everybody else is thinking and judging, and I found that a lot right now in our hunting community, is so many people pointing fingers and so many people getting upset. So many people, this is better than this, and you don't know what you're talking about, and it makes it where it's tough for guys that really have some serious knowledge to share, or someone who has a real serious question, to even answer anymore, because there's so many assholes online who sit behind a computer and are ready to just jump on the next person that posts something they don't like or doesn't match up with their opinion. And I mean, it's tough, you know, and so giving advice is, to me, can be fickle sometimes, you know. So I feel like the prioritizing of how we do things is different for everybody to what's important and what's not. So
yeah, there's a lot of opinions in the world, right? So there's room for everybody, and it is what it is, and you got to take certain things with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and everybody learns something from everybody, you know, if you can approach it with an open mind. And, you know, we've all learned a little something from Dan Infault. We've all learned a little something from, you know, maybe Miles Keller once upon a time.
John Eberhart last week.
Yeah, John Eberhart's another guy. You know, we keep going on.
Agreed.
And, you know, social media has made it real easy for us to get a hold of, somewhat like-minded or not so like-minded people and have conversations and learn from them. It's made it awful easy for that. So, the progression of us as hunters is, it's come along a lot faster, I think, than what it used to.
Yep.
For sure on that. I definitely agree with you. And there's always a different personality that reaches a different person, and some are going to rub some the wrong way.
Yep.
But the goal, in my opinion, is we're all out there to help one another. And, whoever it is that you feel comfortable with, then that's fine. There should be nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't be chastised for whoever you choose to follow, or
not at all,
whatever style you choose to hunt, or whatever is legally in your right to do so. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to learn.
Yeah, we're all fighting the same fight. We could stand to lose what we love so dearly real easily. And
the enemy's outside, right?
Yeah, enemy's outside. And, rather than banding together, you see an awful lot of people at each other's throats for whatever silly thing it is. But, everybody's got their reasons, and you can't make them get along.
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
No, sure can't.
No,
it's just to me, it's really about the priority thing. I mean, really, that's what life is all about, is prioritizing what's most important. And, what's most important, where you hunt, how you hunt, who you follow, what you wear, none of that shit matters. It's, do you enjoy what you do? And really being able to still keep our hunter numbers up, so that way we have a right and a voice. That to me is very important, and squabbling over who made what stand, or whose sticks are the best, or whose design is this, or that shit to me is just,
it's petty.
It's stupid.
It's real petty.
It's not worth it.
Nope.
Why can't you just look at it and say, there's 2 options for everybody, or 4 options?
Well, and the third option might be a saddle, right?
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Ground and pound and spot and stock. And there's a bajillion ways.
And that's what I mean. There's so many ways to hunt. If somebody doesn't want to hunt the way you do, doesn't make them wrong.
No.
Well, the other one we talked about extensively over the last few weeks is, you didn't buy my tag and I didn't buy yours. Don't tell me what to shoot with my tag, and don't give me shit for it. That's why we started this whole okay as hunter thing. Greg's wearing the shirt and the hat. Make hunting okay again. Stop judging people. Big buck, no buck, who cares?
And what you guys are doing in a lot of these podcasts that are out right now, I think, is starting to shed more light to that. You know what I mean? And kind of, you're getting more guys who, I don't want to say are respected in the hunting industry, but maybe because guys have heard of them, they follow them, they tend to respect them a little more than they would the average Joe Schmo who no one knows, to decide to start commenting. And a lot of these guys are speaking out and saying, look, you know what I mean? It's getting ridiculous. It's not about that anymore. It's changed.
Yep. And it's like the shared economy, right? We're all trying to do the same shit here. We all got our different ways about going about it, but the greater good is a greater good.
That's right. Yeah.
So real quick, to me, the thing that's important to me, priority-wise, if we're talking about that, is family, and I want to put my daughter to bed at night, so I'm gonna cut it short or whatever. But we got to stay in touch. We'd love to have you back on the show, so let's make a point to stay in touch.
Absolutely,
and we'll bring you back. Let's talk some more, and we might see you in January. It sounds like.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be real, we talked about the priority thing.
It's the priority thing.
Yep,
that's right.
Exactly.
That's the priority.
Soon, and so if he comes a little early, you guys will probably see me. If he comes a little late, I wish you the best.
Yeah, that's good, man. I got a 2-month-old son, so we just had ours, and 2-year-old daughter, and they're my world, man. So I won't.
I got 4. I got 4 in my household, and they go from 17 to 6 right now. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You've been through it. You're further along.
Yeah, well, that's why I say, when people ask me all the time, they're like, "Dude, how the hell do you do it?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Just do.
I really don't. I mean, honestly, it's just, you do what you got to do. I mean, that's your job. You have to do what you got to do. So.
Yep.
Nope, that's your life. That's what you got to take care of.
Rock on, man. Hey, this
Right.
episode
Well,
will be produced
I
tonight.
appreciate
So
it, guys, for having me on.
absolutely,
Thank you.
anytime,
Thanks for
anytime.
talking
You're
with
welcome
us.
back.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Jason.
See you later.